Hello! Hope you guys are doing awesome today. Before I left for my trip, I made a community tab post, which, if you don't keep up to date on that, I highly suggest it because I do a lot of polls and questions and updates for the channel that lets you guys kind of dictate some of the content for this channel, and I really appreciate all of the amazing support on this community post. But evidently, I am a fucking sadist to myself, and I decided to do the one idea that is probably going to get me torn apart in the comment section because of my opinions, but it's all in good fun, and I am excited to see you guys play along. And that is, make me pick between two metal and or rock bands. I've not looked at a lot of the results here, and some of them may not be metal because I did say that you could pretty much request me to do anything, but it should be fun. There are 46 comments here, so I want to try to go through these as quick as possible. Your guys' names are going to be on the screen so you guys can read along, play along, see what's coming, and I'm not going to try to take too terribly long with any one. Without further ado, let's get into this list. Don't get butthurt about my opinions. At the end of the day, we all like music, and none of these are gospel, and a lot of these bands that are going to get compared, I probably like both, but this is purely about which one is my favorite out of the two. Sam Bennett says, I feel like Megadeth and Metallica are practically required. You could also try something like Guns N' Roses and Nirvana. Well, I'll do the second one first because I think that's a lot easier. I grew up in many ways listening to Nirvana's music on CD and online, so I have a lot more of a sentimental attachment with them than I do Guns N' Roses, so I am going to go with Nirvana there. I think that their songwriting, I think that their impact just outweighs Guns N' Roses, and obviously that's nothing against Guns N' Roses. They're a highly influential band, but I just prefer Nirvana. But as for the first one, that is kind of easy for me too. I am going to pick Metallica for a similar reason, but I also just overall like Metallica's songwriting more. Megadeth, if you put against Metallica tit for tat when it came to just soul riffs and shredding, I would say that most likely Megadeth would come out on top, especially considering Metallica's recent discography and some of their middle discography is a little lacking and weak, whereas I think generally speaking Megadeth has been more consistent as a unit, as a band. I do prefer Metallica for their classics, but when you look at the era of like Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, it's pretty hard for me to answer anything else but Metallica here. And the same would go with any of the big four, but Megadeth and Metallica definitely are the most interesting comparison. Stratovarius and Kadinja, the best of Finnish power metal and the only French gent band that anyone has barely heard of, if at all. I will say I did look up Kadinja for this because I didn't want to just answer Stratovarius, and I still think I prefer Stratovarius. Now I will say, anything on this list that has to do with like power metal has never been my particular cup of tea, and it's definitely not the first genre I'll reach for on the shelf, so I'm not really the best person to ask when it comes to power metal, and I don't cover that much, but from what I have heard from Stratovarius, even though they are a little melodramatic and theatrical for my liking, and their production is very highly sanitized, I would pick Stratovarius. Alright, let's try to get through some of these gunshot. Ruben says, Neobliviscaris and Opeth. It's very possible that you don't know about Neobliviscaris, but metal YouTubers always seem to know every single band in the universe, so it's not impossible. Also, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. So we got the classic matchup. I will say Judas Priest. I love Iron Maiden's impact, but just as a cohesive songwriting unit and consistency and fantastic records that are still coming out of their canon, I have to put Judas Priest at the top there. And I will say, I do not know every band on the planet, but I have definitely covered and know of Neobliviscaris. I will say, this is a rough matchup. I love both of these progressive bands, but I would say Opeth has given me more enjoyment, more complexity, more technical depth, and just as a whole, as a band, have been more of an intriguing band to keep up to date with, so I would say Opeth here. Be Mindful and Wise says, I got a few. Awesome. Between the Buried in Me or Periphery, Bathory or Enslaved, and Alceste or Panopticon. So, Between the Buried in Me and Periphery, Between the Buried in Me, I have gone on record numerous times saying that as a gent fan, as someone who just fucking adores bands like Veil of Maya, Era, Born of Osiris, Vilsharta, I really do not like Periphery that much. They've never particularly clicked with me, whereas I have really enjoyed Between the Buried in Me's work. The Automata, like duo record, as well as like Colors, they just have a fantastic discography in my opinion. It's not flawless, but it's very good. Bathory or Enslaved? I'm gonna go with Bathory, just for sheer influence and which of the two bands I would prefer to listen to. Neither of them are my favorites, but I feel like a lot of times when I listen to Enslaved, it's like bubblegum and it wears off very quickly. And then Alcest or Panopticon, this is fucking rough, because I like these bands probably like as equally as you can, but if I had to say, I am an atmospheric bitch, so I'm going to go with Alcest. I really love Panopticon. I love how, you know, the project incorporates all of these folk influences, and it feels really lavish and naturistic, but Alcest's atmosphere just really captivates me every time I hear them, and they are the better version of Death Heaven. So, let's move on. Stephen Allen says Opeth and Candlemass. Once again, I just really enjoy Opeth. I do think that they are one of the best bands in like the death metal, progressive death metal genre, if you can even call them that, because they're everything all at once. It's like trying to categorize fucking Tool. I do like Candlemass. I just think that they take a little bit to get into what they're actually trying to do in their music, and that's the one thing that prevents me from liking their sort of epic doom metal approach. But for them being probably the most well-known band on the epic doom genre, I think that is very impressive. The next one, Eurovision themed. Lordi versus Mainskin and Blind Channel versus Hatari. So the second one's pretty easy. I like Hatari more than Blind Channel. The first one is a little more difficult because I'm not a big fan of either, unfortunately. But if I had to pick Mainskin, just because I think that their approach to glam metal and glam rock, even though you could definitely get better from a different glam metal or glam rock band, new or old, I think that them bringing that to the stage and putting it on the map, it does, I would not doubt if it's going to turn more people on to metal and rock in that way, and that's always good to have that representation. Peter Borker says off the top of my head, Gorguts or Artificial Brain, an Archspire or First Fragment. These are some good matchups. I will say right off the bat, the second one, Archspire, I do like more than First Fragment. I could not tell you much of what First Fragment has done that has stuck with me, whereas I think Archspire, while I can't listen to them excessively because it is a little much at times, I really respect Archspire as musicians. And then Gorguts I would put over Artificial Brain. I think Gorguts, for sheer technicality, density, production, influence, and what they have accomplished across their discography is just more impressive. I love how claustrophobic their sound is. I love how multifaceted their sound is. And of course, Artificial Brain definitely linger in that technical field as well, but I'm more consistently impressed with what Gorguts do on their material. Alright, Cannibal Corpse or Exhumed, or maybe Bathory versus Emperor, Attila versus Emmure. So Attila versus Emmure, besides like the Acacia Strain, this is really a classic matchup. I will say Emmure, I was never an Attila fan. I just can never get behind them. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get behind them, but definitely Emmure out of that. Bathory versus Emperor, that's good. I would still lean... Oh, God, that's going to get me hate. I would still lean Bathory. Like, I love Emperor, don't get me wrong. They are fucking influential as hell. But I just like Bathory's early material more than a lot of black metal that came about in the 80s and the 90s. Don't come at me. Or if you want to come at me, explain why. Cannibal Corpse versus Exhumed. I'm a sucker for Cannibal Corpse. I also really like Exhumed's like gritty and gruesome approach to death metal, but Cannibal Corpse is just classic. I've seen them numerous times live. I think that they are just a consistent band, if nothing else, and there are really no other bands in death metal that you can go to and listen to and just adore for being Cannibal Corpse. There's really no other bands that service that itch or scratch that itch quite like Corpse Grinder and the boys, making great bassy gritty death metal music, so that's what my answer would be for that. Quite a few here by John Truitt. Nightwish versus Epica, Iron Maiden versus Sabaton, Within Temptation versus Delane, and Merciful Fate versus Venom. I will pick Nightwish over Epica. I think Epica is just, once again, it's just so melodramatic and theatrical, and while Nightwish certainly is as well, Nightwish has been consistently one of the only folk metal bands that I have liked throughout time. Now, I have not liked all of their eras. I've liked certain ones more than others because they just keep having to find new female vocalists, and it's a little sad, but I do really appreciate them. Iron Maiden I would put over Sabaton. I've never been much of a Sabaton fan, so I'm definitely going to say Iron Maiden there. Within Temptation versus Delane, I don't like either of these bands, but if I had to pick Within Temptation, I've liked more of their material. I just think that they need to tone down their blown the fuck out production. Like, when I listened to their most recent record, it just baffled me how something can sound so completely lifeless, but I still like them more than Delane. And then Merciful Fate versus Venom, I would say they both have similar material in their early days, but I would go with Merciful Fate just because of how iconic King Diamond is as a vocalist and as a songwriter. I think I just appreciate him and the band more. Next up, Sonic the Savage Turkey says Halloween or Blind Guardian. Once again, I will say I'm not really a power metal person, so I'm not the best to ask for this, but Blind Guardian I've been more impressed by on their material than Halloween. So, Slipknot and Sullivan King, because Sullivan King himself has said that he has been heavily inspired by them in the past. Good for Sullivan King. He needs to get his own influences, because I don't like him as an artist. Slipknot forever. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not like a Slipknot fanatic or anything, and I could not tell you a lot about some of their discography, but I do really like Slipknot. I literally was just talking about Acacia Strain and Emmure, and Zach Gates said Acacia Strain / Emmure for a silly one, and then Incantation versus Immolation for a serious one. These are some good matchups. I like Acacia Strain more than Emmure. I think their approach to metalcore influence to deathcore and their songwriting, their vocal techniques, it reminds me a lot of another deathcore band I really like, the Red Chord. I doubt anyone really knows about them here or has like requested them, but they're fantastic. I would definitely say Acacia Strain for that. I would say Immolation over Incantation. Immolation has had more influence, has had more impact on the late 90s and early to mid 2000s, and left more of an imprint on some of the best death metal to come out of the late 90s and early 2000s, compared to so many other bands that were playing around with like the groove metal trend that was coming around and trying to be so technical. I think Immolation just made some fantastic influential material. For a laugh, compare Milli Vanilli to Gwar. I don't like either of these, so I'm just gonna say Gwar because they wear funny costumes. How about Wolves in the Throne Room? That is not a comparison. Wolves in the Throne Room versus who? Do I make my own here? Do I say Wolves in the Throne Room versus Deaf Heaven just so I can dunk on Deaf Heaven more? Wolves in the Throne Room versus Deaf Heaven by Andy Wright. I would say Wolves in the Throne Room because they are fucking amazing and their ambient records are slept on. So Blackwater Rust. Let me go ahead and do that. Psycho Sinner versus 6 Feet Under. Ew. Fuck you. No. Oh my god. That is disgusting. They both are like shit. I guess 6 Feet Under for the laugh, but Psycho Sinner, I cannot stand that fucking dipshit. Like, he is one of the cringiest people in metal. I cannot stand him. I don't even know his name off the top of my head. You know the one I'm talking about, the devil daddy horny bitch. Iron Maiden versus Judas Priest. Judas Priest, once again. Exhumed versus Carcass. That's a good matchup. I will say Carcass, though. I love their early gore grind material. I love Heartwork. I just love their discography, and their recent material has proven that they still got the groove in them. Blue DOS Nord versus Portal. Blue DOS Nord's experimental avant-garde style has never really clicked with me in the way it has for some people, whereas Portal's material has always drawn me in and sort of made me enamored and captivated with them, so I'm going to go with Portal here. Cattle Decapitation versus Dying Fetus. That is one of the best matchups I've seen here so far, because you could make a solid argument either way for different reasons. Now, Dying Fetus has some amazing grooves, they have some amazing bass work, they have amazing vocals, and when it comes to brutal death metal, except potentially like Brodequin, I really fucking like Dying Fetus. But y'all know Cattle Decapitation's one of my favorite bands, and I think Travis Ryan as a vocalist, I think their production, their songwriting, as well as like the new material they're making, as well as so many classics in the death grind subgenre, I would suggest these records to anyone, like the Anthropocene Extinction, and To Serve Man, and The Harvest Floor, as well as Monolith of Inhumanity. I think it's so great. It's such a great, solid discography. So I'll go Cattle Decap there. Fit for an Autopsy versus Shadow of Intent. I would go with Shadow of Intent. I like Fit for an Autopsy. I just think they make very dime a dozen, like, deathcore and death metal. Whereas Shadow of Intent, I've seen them live, and they are very tight. And even if you listen to them and think they sound a little bit mechanical, I promise that they are a lot better than you might think. And they are so tight live. And I guess I have a soft spot because the lead vocalist said I look like Dennis Stoff from Asking Alexandria. So I guess I got that going for me. Psycho Stick and Cannabis Corpse, yeah, comedy metal. Cannabis Corpse is funny. I like their sort of marijuana take on Cannibal Corpse. And Psycho Stick, I just, never really clicked with me, the humor, so I'm gonna go with Cannabis Corpse. Bag of Razor says, hold on. Okay. My Dying Bride or Tiamat, oh, I don't like either of these bands. I will say My Dying Bride probably edges it out, even though I just am not a fan of My Dying Bride, and I've had a lot of critiques of them. I still respect their atmosphere, I still respect their production. Shadow Project or Danzig. Glenn Danzig is a legend. I like Danzig. I think that even though they're never going to be one of those bands that I just reach to immediately, they're definitely above Shadow Project for me. Okay, Marcel Medvig says Rammstein or Sabaton, Lamb of God versus Pantera, and We Butter the Bread with Butter versus Brojob. I have not heard the name We Butter the Bread with Butter since, oh my god, like that is a classic. I will say Brojob just because their material is so hilarious. Like, I always get a laugh out of it. Plus, they do something good with comedy music, and that is they make actually good music to go along with the comedy, which I appreciate. Rammstein, I will put over Sabaton, even though I do not really like their most recent material. Rammstein, I think, has made more bangers, has made more heat-driven tracks, whereas Sabaton, just not my cup of tea. Lamb of God versus Pantera. I love both of these bands, but I have to give it to Pantera. I think Lamb of God, while they have a very good discography and Randy Blythe is a great vocalist, Pantera just holds a really special place in my heart and in a lot of people's hearts, I would say. So yeah. Darko US versus Brand of Sacrifice. Brand of Sacrifice is one of my favorite deathcore bands, like, on the map in the 2010s, and I would definitely pick them over Darko US. Jordan Carey, we have quite a few. We have 5. Okay. Abstractor or Primitive Man. Thank you so much for putting Primitive Man here. They are another one of my favorite bands. I cannot say I was too familiar with Abstractor, but I went and listened to some of their material, and while they're good, I definitely want to go with Primitive Man here. I just think their dense style is so just atmospheric and claustrophobic and heavy. Magua or what the fuck is that band? I don't know if I looked that up, actually. That is, y'all have beaten me. This Jordan Carey has brought a couple bands I don't know. Magua, I would put over this band I don't know, just because I think that when it comes to, like, evil, satanic sounding Polish black metal, Magua are very great. Don't know who Miss Brimming is. Ulcerate or Blut aus Nord. I would go with Ulcerate. I think that they have been more experimental and have done it more tastefully, and for similar reasons of why I'm attracted to, like, Primitive Man and Portal, I would be attracted to Ulcerate. Worm or Dream Unending. That is a good matchup. I would say Dream Unending over Worm. And then finally, Sleepwalker or I don't even want to try to pronounce that because I'm going to butcher it. Satek Hexen. I don't know either of these bands, so I'm actually gonna have to skip this. Y'all, you beat me. You beat me, Jordan Carey, the person above that was like, every metal YouTuber knows every metal band ever. Clearly not. So that's good. Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. Oh, ow. Ow. Oh, you just hit my childhood. Ow. Oh, shit. I love Soundgarden. I love Chris Cornell. I love Audioslave. But Alice in Chains, man, I just, their sound for grunge was so despondent and gloomy and just amazing. I love me some classic Alice in Chains, so I'm gonna have to go with that. The Black Dahlia Murder and Children of Bodom. Any day, the Black Dahlia Murder. Children of Bodom are fucking cringy. I do not like them. I think they literally just take so many styles and influences from other bands and just somehow end up coming out the other side doing it worse. So I'm gonna go with the Black Dahlia Murder. Shinedown and 3 Days Grace. 3 Days Grace, easily. I think they have more classic songs in the post-grunge and alt-rock genres, whereas Shinedown, I think, are just a worse version of Breaking Benjamin. I said it. Gorguts or Deicide. Once again, Gorguts, I love Deicide in the death metal genre, but Gorguts have just consistently proved over time that they are a strong, hard-hitting, technically proficient, but also just a standalone good band, so I will go with that. Manowar or Rhapsody of Fire and Nanowar of Steel. Ew. These are all bands I'm kind of just meh about. I guess Manowar, just because I think it's funny, the aesthetic, I think that's what I would go with. Slipknot or Ghost, and Ice Nine Kills or Motionless in White. These are some good comparisons. I would pick Slipknot over Ghost, which might get me some hate. I just like their songwriting more. I like Corey as a vocalist more. I just appreciate their instrumentation more, and it's more my cup of tea. Don't get me wrong, Ghost is great, but just I would pick Slipknot there. And then Motionless in White I would put over Ice Nine Kills any day. They both kind of have that horror, creepy aesthetic to them, but I just love Motionless in White as a band, and Chris Motionless developing his style over time has really impressed me, so I'll go with Motionless in White there. Sabaton versus Civil War. Sabaton, but once again, just not a fan of the approach to songwriting from either of these bands. Incantation versus Immolation. We have another repeat. Immolation, same reason. Sabaton versus Black Sabbath. Easily Black Sabbath. Fucking easily. Summoning and Burzum. Summoning. I think the Tolkien, like, epic theatrical black metal is just so much fun. I really do love the medieval take, and Burzum is hella influential, Varga's hella influential, but I would have to go with Summoning there. Venom versus Bathory. Alright, so I was waiting for this. I was waiting to get some fucking hate here, because these are the two bands that are like the Metallica and Megadeth of black metal, because I literally made a video about who made black metal first, and I might make an updated version of that video. But I'm just going to say it. Bathory. Bathory came first. Bathory is the better band. Bathory is more influential. I like Bathory more. Come at me. Dayseeker versus Bad Omens. Ooh, these are two of, like, my favorite bands right now. I've listened to both of these, like, a hell of a lot recently. I would go with Dayseeker, even though I love Bad Omens and their most recent material has been great. Rory as a fucking vocalist, I believe his name is Rory Rodriguez, is one of the best vocalists in, like, post-hardcore music, and just their atmosphere on a song like Drunk or Burial Plot, mwah, chef's kiss. Solstifier and Portal. I will go with Portal again. We got some more like avant-garde experimental matchups with Portal. I like how a lot of this has just been like, okay guys, think of an experimental band. Think of a band that does something odd and put them against Portal. That has been like a lot of it. Portal. I will go with Portal. Vinny Chesney, Cannibal Corpse or Cattle Decap. Oh, I love both of the lead vocalists, but you gotta give it to Cattle Decap. Like, they're more of an experimental and fun band that just constantly is innovating their own style. Veil of Maya or Currents. I have developed more of a fond appreciation for Currents than I did in the past, because those of you that have followed this channel for a while will know that I have never really been that big of a Currents fan, and I thought they were overhyped when they burst on the scene. But Veil of Maya, I love them. They are responsible for my favorite deathcore album and just the entire genre, being Eclipse, one of the most slept on deathcore records in my opinion. Now, if you're comparing Veil of Maya metalcore era and Currents metalcore era, I think Currents edges it out, but I am just in love with Veil of Maya's deathcore era. Oceano or Ingested. Even though Oceano needs to make more fucking material, I will go with Oceano. I've liked their deathcore style. Their breakdowns were so ahead of the curve for just straight heaviness. They were making breakdowns like Lorna Shore and Infant Annihilator long before they pissed. Opeth or Agalloch, that is a really good matchup, actually. I would say I would go to Opeth again, even though I do love Agalloch, for the same reasons that I've given for Opeth multiple times. I love their material, I love their atmosphere, I love their experimentation. Here's a couple. Vision Video and Tala. I will go with Tala. Hungry Lights, fantastic channel, and I've seen Tala live. They're hilarious. Gojira and Meshuggah. I will go with... I don't like that matchup. No, I thought I was gonna, like, rush into that, but no, that is rough. I would say Gojira. I like their riffs. I know that, like, I'm the metalcore gent boy, so you would think that I'd go with Meshuggah, but Gojira just slaps with their riffs. They have some amazing grooves to them, what can I say? Specimen and Rings of Saturn. For a similar reason to Archspire, I will go with Rings of Saturn. I have to be in the mood to listen to them, but their material BPM is just through the fucking roof back. It's amazing. Neobliviscaris versus Veil of Nath. That is a very good matchup. I do like both of these bands, but I will say Neobliviscaris edges it out. Dissection and Thulkandra. Had to look up Thulkandra because I was not familiar with this project, and I will go with Dissection because I just appreciate their technical style more. Reflections or Invent Animate. So we're going with like the ambient infused atmospheric metalcore, are we? Well, I am an Invent Animate stan and really love their material, so I'll go with Invent Animate. William Ashworth is fucking screaming at me for this. Sodom or Creator? Okay. Creator. Creator has better riffs. Creator has better solos. Creator has better songwriting. Creator has better production. All right. And then finally, we have quite a few here and a pretty diverse genre spread. Knocked Loose and Code Orange. When it comes to like the heavy, glitchy, technical metalcore music, I do prefer Knocked Loose, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that because they're a little more, I guess, hard to get into because of the vocal style and the punk influence, but I love Knocked Loose. I've seen them live. The pit was insane. The dust on that pit was just fucking incredible. Slayer and Anthrax. Slayer any day of the week, better solos. Anthrax is underrated for a reason. Oransi Pazuzu and Bluedos Nord. I would not think I would have saw Oransi Pazuzu here. For those of you that don't know, Oransi Pazuzu is like this psychedelic black metal band and psychedelic death metal band with influence coming from like 70s psychedelic music and experimental music, and I do like them a lot more than Bluedos Nord and think their discography is more impressive. Aphex Twin and Daft Punk. Daft Punk made some of my favorite music of like my childhood, and Aphex Twin as a project is just very influential, but I would go with Daft Punk. Aesop Rock and Billy Woods. I would go with Aesop Rock. I think that his material in the hip-hop genre is just better, whereas I will say Billy Woods as a collaborator is much stronger than Billy Woods solo, whereas I think in the inverse, Aesop Rock is great at solo work, so that's why I would go with that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts were of these, and if you disagreed with any of my opinions, I can't wait to hear it. And let me know if you want a part 2 of this eventually. I would love to do something like this. I love engaging with you guys in this way. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.